The must-buy whiskey of the year is one that's old, even though it's young, and it's blended Scotch with the soul of a single malt. It's a heavily peated whiskey from a brand new independent bottler that sells for an incredible price. And it's a whiskey that not only had my vote for best blended Scotch on the online Scotch Whisky Awards, but it's also my pick for best value Scotch whiskey of 2025. It's about time that I got around to reviewing the Living Souls 99-1 blended Scotch. My name is Matt. This is Whiskey on the West Coast. So what do I look for in a must-have, cannot miss whiskey? One, it's got to have a good story. Number two, it has to be priced right. Number three, it's got to smell and taste fantastic. And fourth, it's got to be relatively available. And this whiskey beside me has it all and is the must-have whiskey of the year. So let's break this down. So the story behind the Living Souls 99-1 is that it's a product of a marvelous stroke of serendipity. This whiskey only exists because of a mistake at the bottling hall. 10,000 liters of 18-year-old heavily peated single malt Scotch whiskey from an island distillery was accidentally vatted with 100 liters of 3-year-old grain whiskey. Now, Living Souls gives us a pretty good hint as to where the malt component comes from with the bottling strength of this whiskey, 46.3%, which happens to be the same bottling strength as this whiskey, the Ledaig 18-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey from the Tobermory distillery on the Isle of Mull, which is just a fantastic place to visit if you ever have the chance. Now, if you've watched my channel in the past, you'll likely know that I'm a big fan of Ledaig and the Ledaig 18-year-old. So this blended Scotch whiskey is 99% Ledaig 18-year-old single malt and 1% 3-year-old grain whiskey, hence the name 99-1. Now, the average price that I could find for Ledaig 18 in Canada was roughly about $230, though I've seen it as low as $170 in the past. And in the UK, I was able to find Ledaig 18 for £100 at Royal Mile Whiskies. Now, the Living Souls 99-1 will sell out here on the west coast of Canada and British Columbia. It will sell for $130 Canadian. That is $100 cheaper than the average price for Ledaig 18. And in Alberta, I picked up a bottle last fall for $90 Canadian, which is about $80 cheaper than the cheapest price I've seen Ledaig 18 at $170. In the UK, the Living Souls 99-1 runs for £58, 42 pounds less than the Ledaig 18. Overall, due to the presence of just 1% 3-year-old grain whiskey, this whiskey sells for an average of 45% less than Ledaig 18-year-old. That's a hell of a deal. That is, if the whiskey's any good. So we've covered the story and we've talked about the price, but really, we need to talk about what really matters. Smell and taste. This is all for naught if it doesn't smell or taste great. So Living Souls 99-1, we got to cover the core details. It is a blended Scotch whiskey. Technically, this is a 3-year-old blended Scotch whiskey, even though it's 99% 18-year-old. It's 46.3% ABV, non-chill filter, natural color, as we talked about. Now, cask makeup. The typical Ledaig 18 is 16 years in ex-bourbon casks, 2 years of finishing in sherry casks. Because this was sent to the bottling hall to be bottled as Ledaig 18, I'm going to assume that that is exactly what they did with this whiskey before they sold it off after being blended with the grain. So this would be 16 years ex-bourbon casks, 2 years sherry casks. That's an assumption on my part, but I think it's an educated guess and assumption. 35 to 40 ppm is the on-grain phenols for 99% of the malt that went into this whiskey. All right, on the nose, we have, wow, some nice medicinal peat and tar, some like salty sea air, and like salted like lemon, orange rind, sweet and sour sauce, like sweet and sour chicken sauce, and like a berry jam, like raspberries, blackberries. Oh, wow. Nice savoriness along with that sweetness, that smoke. Getting tobacco. There's like a cool menthol as well. But what I've experienced through some drams, some glasses of this whiskey, is that this both gets fruitier with time and a bit more savory. Leather. The sherry is evident. You get that raisin. There might be a little bit of nuttiness too. So like some nice trail mix vibes. Not Coca-Cola, but like an off-brand cola, like President's Choice Cola, something like that. But it's got that trademark, like dirty Ledaig funk. It's definitely the Ledaig profile. This is sweet, it's peaty, it's coastal, it's rich, it's fruity, a touch savory. Honestly, on the nose, there's no sign of grain whiskey, and there's no sign of youth. So yeah, 3-year-old whiskey. All right, let's try the palate. Slunge. Leather, sweet tobacco, a light chili pepper, good, nice viscosity. That smoked like meat sensation. Savoriness is like teriyaki beef jerky, a bit of soy sauce. It's slightly medicinal. I actually would say more than slightly medicinal. I find Ledaig medicinal. I find people don't often give it that tag, but that's the type of peat profile it gives me. Yeah, so slightly medicinal, but yet earthy peat. Another sip here. I talked about on the nose, the sweet and sour chicken sauce. That's on the palate too. Sweet, syrupy sherry. Stewed raisins. That smoker's tobacco's in there. Orange spread, like a orange marmalade. Something a bit resinous, like either pine resin or like hops. Like there's something like dank in there. Another sip here. Wow. That menthol note, that cooling menthol, transfers from the nose onto the palate as well. This is like smoking a cigar by the sea while sipping a glass of sherry. This is just a phenomenal whiskey. I have to say, in comparison to the standard Ledaig 18, the only real drop off that I noticed was that the Ledaig 18 has a bit more viscosity, has a bit more weight to the malt to carry all these really robust flavors. But I have to say, that is really splitting hairs though. And is that difference worth the 100 to maybe even more dollar difference, or the 45-pound difference in this whiskey? Now, before I give you the score on this whiskey, we have to talk about the final fundamental of what makes a must-have, must-buy, cannot-miss whiskey, and that is availability. Now, this whiskey actually launched in the UK back in May of 2025, and it's still available online at Royal Mile Whiskies, at Master Malt, I think at Whiskey Exchange, and more. So it's been available for almost a year in the UK. It also launched in Alberta, Canada this past fall, and is, to my knowledge, is about to return once again after previously selling out. Here on the West Coast in British Columbia, it's about to launch at the BC Spirits release on February 7th, as well as at the Strath Liquor Shop in Victoria in the near future. The only thing holding back this whiskey is the fact that Living Souls is a brand new independent bottler, meaning that they have yet to break in to all the major whiskey markets that are out there. But if they are imported into your market, this is likely present. It's likely on the shelves. You can likely go out and pick it up if you get Living Souls whiskey. Honestly, I've been impressed by everything I've tried from Living Souls. I tried a number of their whiskeys, I think 8 or 9 of their whiskeys at the Victoria Whiskey Festival. From the 19-year-old Kildalton, which is Ardbeg. It very reasonably priced 40-year-old, the Blended Scotch number 2, I tried in Edinburgh. The number 3, I tried at Victoria. There's a lot to appreciate and enjoy from this new independent bottler. I cannot wait to try what comes next. But for a score, if we're going to be talking about Dramface scale, out of 10, this is getting an 8 out of 10. This is something special. It's an excellent choice, well worth purchasing at the retail price. The price is just, it's that X factor that takes it another notch higher from a 7 out of 10. It's likely to be held in high regard. I think there's going to be a lot of people talking about this whiskey in the future because it doesn't feel like every day that we get a whiskey this good at this price. If I was going to give you a 100-point scale, because I know some of you prefer that, if I wasn't factoring value, I'd be saying it's about an 88 out of 100. But if I factored in value, this is easily like a 90 out of 100 whiskey, especially if you like heavily peated whiskeys, especially if you like the Ledaig single malt profile as much as I do. I'm in love with this whiskey. I want more of it before it disappears forever, because with only 10,000-ish liters, it won't be around forever. But that's it, guys. 8 out of 10 on Dram Face scale. Let's say 90 out of 100 on the 100-point scale. Let me know in the comments, what is your current must-buy or must-have whiskey that's out on the market right now? Let me know in the comments. Thanks as always for watching, commenting, liking the videos. And until next time, guys, from the West Coast, Slange.